On February 1st, 2026, Australia's new housing law will slam shut the door for up to 140,000 people, nearly overnight. Officials promised a solution to the rental crisis, but Treasury projections warn that thousands could be stranded as properties vanish from the market. Why did a policy meant to save renters threaten to leave an entire generation out in the cold? The answer starts years before this law, and only gets darker from here. Sydney's skyline glinted with new towers in 2017, but the view from the ground was starkly different. In just 2 years, property prices in Sydney and Melbourne soared by 78%, fueled by a wave of foreign investment and cheap loans. Houses that once seemed attainable for young families and essential workers slipped out of reach almost overnight. Investors, lured by the promise of quick returns, snapped up suburban homes and regional cottages, pushing prices higher everywhere they looked. Then came the short-stay gold rush. By 2019, platforms like Airbnb had transformed 120,000 properties across Australia, from long-term rentals into holiday lets and weekend escapes. For every new listing that promised a taste of city life or a rural retreat, one more family searching for a stable lease found the cupboard bare. CoreLogic's data showed the national pool of affordable rentals shrinking each month, with vacancy rates dropping and competition for remaining homes intensifying. This wasn't an accident or a natural cycle. It was the result of money flooding into a system with no new supply to balance it out. Every converted Airbnb and every investor bidding up prices meant fewer homes for average Australians. By the end of the decade, the idea of finding a rental without a bidding war or weeks of searching had become a memory. The scarcity wasn't just a number on a market report. It was the daily reality for millions locked out by a system that rewarded speculation over shelter. Victoria banned no grounds evictions. New South Wales capped rent increases to once a year. Queensland rolled out stricter minimum standards for rental properties. Each state moved at its own pace, creating a maze of rules that left landlords and tenants guessing what would come next. For investors, the landscape became harder to navigate. Some faced new compliance costs, others braced for tighter restrictions on who they could rent to or when they could reclaim a property. The promise of property as a safe bet started to crack. By late 2024, the numbers told a story of growing fatigue. 87,000 investment properties changed hands in just 2 years, with many owners citing regulatory burden as the reason for selling up. In regional towns like Ballarat and Wodonga, small landlords weighed the cost of upgrades against falling yields and decided to exit the market. Even in the cities, investors who once saw steady returns now faced uncertainty, with new rules threatening to erode profits and complicate tenancies. Instead of a unified solution, the patchwork of state reforms deepened the sense of instability. Landlords pulled out, rental listings shrank. The market tightened further, leaving renters with fewer choices and higher prices. Calls for a national response grew louder as the cracks in the system widened, setting the stage for federal intervention. Australia's rental market entered 2026 under a new set of national rules, each one aimed at fixing a problem that had spiraled out of control. The first lever was a digital rental registry, pitched as a way to reward reliable tenants and give landlords more confidence. Every lease, payment, and dispute now left a permanent mark, a rental history that followed people from one home to the next. For some, it meant faster approvals. For others, especially those who had fallen behind during the pandemic, it meant a record they could not shake. Nearly 340,000 Australians now carry a digital black mark, most from hardship periods rather than actual evictions or damage. The next requirement targeted the homes themselves. Every rental property needed to meet a minimum standard for safety and energy efficiency. Government estimates put the average upgrade cost between $35,000 and $65,000 per property, a figure that sent shockwaves through older suburbs and regional towns. By the start of 2026, only about a third of rentals were up to code, leaving millions in limbo as landlords scrambled to book trades or weighed the cost of compliance against selling up. Rent controls arrived with a hard ceiling. Annual increases were capped federally at 4%, with states setting their own limits. Victoria at 3%, New South Wales at 5%, and Queensland at 4%. For landlords facing rising costs, the cap felt like a squeeze, and more than 1 in 5 surveyed said they planned to exit the market rather than accept the new limits. At the other end, the government dangled incentives, offering 30% tax reductions for institutional investors willing to build new rental blocks and guarantee 10-year leases. But the fine print was clear. Only new projects, only after January 2025, and nothing ready before at least 2027. The rules were set. The question was whether the system could hold together long enough for help to arrive. The first compliance checks landed like a punch. Treasury's audit found hundreds of thousands of rental properties falling short of the new standards, most lacking the insulation, safety upgrades, or energy ratings now required. In raw numbers, that is nearly 900,000 homes suddenly at risk of being pulled from the market. Landlords, already weary from years of shifting rules, faced a choice: spend tens of thousands of dollars on upgrades or walk away. Survey data revealed the mood. 41% said they would not pay for improvements, while another 1/3 considered selling outright. In regional Australia, the blow landed hardest. Rural towns, where 61% of properties failed to meet the new criteria, watched their rental listings shrink week by week. The economics simply did not add up. A $45,000 upgrade for a home earning $320 a week meant years before breaking even, if ever. At the same time, the national rental application platform buckled under pressure. Within weeks of launch, the system went down dozens of times, locking out both tenants and agents. Application rejections soared as landlords, wary of any blemish in a tenant's digital record, began filtering out anyone with a history of missed payments or disputes. For those flagged during the pandemic, it became a digital scarlet letter, no matter the reason. In some cities, 3 out of 4 applicants with a payment mark found themselves automatically denied. The early fallout was swift and unforgiving, exposing just how fragile the rental market had become in the face of sweeping, untested reforms. Kate Colvin does not mince words. You can't pull thousands of rentals off the market and expect stability. We are treating housing as if there is plenty to go around. There is not. Across the table, Housing Minister Claire O'Neil counters, we cannot ignore unsafe, substandard homes. Short-term pain is necessary for long-term stability. Samantha Rees from the Property Council fires back with numbers. Landlord returns have collapsed to 1.1%. The system is becoming unworkable. Dr. Cameron Murray shakes his head. Investors were already leaving. This law just shows how fragile things have become. Leo Patterson. Ross calls out the digital record. You are creating a permanent underclass, one black mark, and you are locked out. Professor Judith Yates cuts through the noise. We are arguing over scraps. The real problem is we are not building enough homes. Everything else is a distraction. 3 futures now compete for Australia's housing market. The first, the government bailout, is seen as the most likely by analysts, with a 40% chance. In this scenario, authorities step in to delay upgrade deadlines and pour money into landlord subsidies, hoping to slow the exodus from the rental pool. The second is a hardline approach, with a 30% probability. The government holds firm on reforms and tries to cushion the blow with more rental assistance, but accepts a permanently tighter market and rising inequality. The third, also a 30% chance, is the catastrophic adjustment. Mass evictions, political fallout, and emergency laws to seize or repurpose empty homes. No matter which path wins out, the numbers point in the same direction. Home ownership for people under 40 is forecast to drop to just 18%, cementing renting as the default for an entire generation. Right now, Australia faces a choice. Treat housing as a basic right, or let policy missteps deepen a generational divide. As rent soars and supply shrinks, The true crisis is not just regulation. It is whether we value shelter or only profit. For many, the answer cannot wait. Share your thoughts below.